What's that for? The latest from Podnews.net with Measurement by Magellan AI. Marc Maron and producer McDonald have talked about how they work with Acast on sponsor ad campaigns on their show WTF. We link to that today from our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net. YouTube's Creator Insider has produced a video announcing the company's new podcast features and metrics.
The goal of organizing your videos into a podcast on YouTube is increased discoverability across YouTube main.
He sounds excited. Unlike the announcement from the company earlier this week, this new video claims that the features are still rolling out, but that the rollout will finish at the end of this week. YouTube also claims podcast-specific analytics, saying it's distinct from current analytics offered. And in case you wondered what they look like, we've got a link to ours in our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net. Audiobooks are now available to Spotify users in Canada. The company says that the catalogue has reached more than 350,000 audiobook titles. It's available in English and French, marking the first time that Spotify has launched audiobooks to a non-English speaking audience. It's joining the US, the UK, Ireland, Australia and New Zealand. And you've not long to vote for the Podcast Academy's board elections. You should check your email to learn how. And in podcast news, the front page from the New Zealand Herald is celebrating its first year anniversary and more than 1 million downloads. It's a daily podcast available across New Zealand at 5 a.m. every weekday, published by NZME. Also celebrating its first year anniversary is The Life Shift, stories about life-changing moments. Since its launch a year ago today, the show has gained a loyal following of listeners who have been deeply impacted by the insightful interviews and thought-provoking discussions released weekly. People I Mostly Admire has made it to 100 shows. It's the podcast from Freakonomics Radio Network, hosted by Freakonomics co-author Stephen Levitt, who has made a retrospective episode looking back on some of the previous guests. Thundercast is a new official podcast looking at the making of Mozilla Thunderbird, the company's email app. It's measuring its downloads on OP3. And My Ramadan is new from SBS Audio Today, a podcast that explores how diverse Australian Muslims are experiencing Ramadan and Eid. You can expect discussions on fasting in the workplace, iftar traditions, mixed culture families, spirituality, reconciling the hipstification of Ramadan and Islamophobia, and how the month connects with belonging and identity for Gen Z. This podcast is sponsored by Measurement by Magellan AI. This thing is on podcast advertising attribution and delivery verification from the leaders in podcast ad data. You can find out more at magellan.ai/measurement. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.